Chapter 3: The Cosmos, Creation, and the Inverted Tree. The real form of this tree cannot be perceived in this world. No one can understand where it ends, where it begins, or where its foundation is. But with determination, one must cut down this strongly rooted tree with the weapon of detachment. Bhagavad Gita 15. 3-4. With the stage now set for this epic struggle between divine order and chaotic rebellion, between truth and illusion, as we saw in the demonic descent of Chapter 2, my mind naturally turned to the very arena where this cosmic conflict would play out, the universe itself. Milton dedicates significant portions of his epic to describing the creation of the world and the idyllic beauty of the Garden of Eden. As a yoga and meditation teacher, I frequently emphasize the profound interconnectedness of all living things, the cyclical nature of existence, and the concept of a divine plan, lessons that resonate in classes where students seek balance amid modern chaos like urban stress or digital overload. Reading Milton's meticulously crafted account of creation in Book 7, I was struck by its sheer grandeur and aesthetic beauty, with vivid imagery of stars forming and life emerging. Yet simultaneously, a subtle uneasiness stirred within me. Was this new world, this pristine paradise, truly eternal? Was it immune to the forces of chaos and corruption that lurked at its edges, much like how climate change threatens our own fragile ecosystems today? These questions, especially those concerning the fundamental nature of the material world, inevitably guided me back to my father and the inexhaustible wisdom of ancient Vedic understanding, where the universe is seen not as a static masterpiece but a dynamic illusion to transcend. This chapter will explore the cosmic architecture presented in Paradise Lost and compare it with the profound Vedic understanding of the material world. Our premise is to show how Milton's creation narrative, particularly his depiction of paradise itself, can be understood not as an ultimate eternal dwelling, but rather as a temporary inverted reflection of superior, eternal spiritual reality. We will examine the Gita's powerful metaphor of the upside-down banyan tree to explain the transient, cyclical, and ultimately dissatisfying nature of material existence, a concept that parallels modern physics ideas of multiverses or quantum fluctuations. Through this lens, we will see that the ultimate spiritual goal is not to preserve an earthly paradise, but to transcend material entanglement entirely and return to the eternal spiritual realm, finding true peace beyond the illusions of time and space. Order from the vast abyss. In Paradise Lost, Milton masterfully portrays the creation of the universe as a direct response to Satan and his fallen angels' rebellion. After their expulsion, God declares his intention to create another world and a new race of men innumerable. This act of creation is not merely a display of power, but also a profound affirmation of divine omnipotence and a strategic move to restore balance disrupted by Satan's defiance, echoing themes of renewal after destruction. The void, the vast abyss that existed before creation, is described as a chaotic, unformed realm where chaos reigns supreme, a wild abyss, the womb of nature and perhaps her grave. From this formless primeval matter, God brings forth order, light, and life. The description is majestic, filled with grand imagery. "Let there be light," said God, and forthwith light ethereal, first of things, quintessence pure sprung from the deep, separating light from darkness, land from water, and the emergence of celestial bodies like stars and planets. Raphael the archangel is sent to Adam in Eden to recount the story of creation, emphasizing that God is the original creator and author and end of all things. He teaches Adam that humanity's ultimate purpose is to adore and worship God Supreme, who made him chief of all his works. This narrative establishes a clear hierarchy and purpose for creation. Everything is subordinate to God, created by him and for his glory, much like how in contemporary science, the Big Bang Theory posits an origin point but leaves room for philosophical questions about why. Eden itself is depicted as a perfect, idyllic garden, a place of unblemished beauty and harmony, intended as the dwelling for Adam and Eve, who are granted free will within its bounds, with the singular prohibition against the tree of knowledge till then forbidden. It's a paradise of delicious vines and flowery hill, evoking images of sustainable utopias dreamed of in environmental movements today. However, even within this pristine description, Milton subtly weaves in hints of the material world's inherent vulnerability and transient nature. Raphael warns Adam that God attributes to place no sanctity, if none be thither brought by men who there frequent or therein dwell. This profound statement implies that the sacredness or perfection of paradise is not an intrinsic quality of the physical location alone, but fundamentally depends upon the spiritual purity, conduct, and devotion of its inhabitants, like how a beautiful national park loses its essence if visitors litter or exploit it. The very existence of chaos as a hostile wild abyss, lurking at the edges of the newly formed cosmos, suggests an ever-present external threat, while the tree of knowledge, standing at Eden's heart, represents an internal one. The material creation, no matter how divinely ordered, is not immune to external or internal forces of disruption, foreshadowing its ultimate impermanence, a theme that aligns with entropy in physics, where order inevitably decays. Divine plan versus accidental formation. Unlike philosophical systems that might propose a random or accidental universe, such as some interpretations of evolution or quantum randomness, Vedic cosmology asserts that the cosmic manifestation is precisely structured and under the superior guidance of the divine. The Supreme is the ultimate architect and controller. The creation, maintenance, and annihilation of the complete cosmic manifestation are conducted by divine will. Therefore, to suggest that the universe operates without a plan is considered foolish. The divine, as transcendental, is beyond the material modes of nature, meaning these modes, although issuing from the Supreme, do not affect the divine. This is a special characteristic of the Supreme. Although the universe is a product of divine energies, the Supreme remains aloof and unaffected, demonstrating inconceivable power and sovereignty, like a programmer who codes a simulation but isn't bound by its rules. 3 modes of material nature. The entire material world operates under the influence of 3 modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. These modes are emanations from the divine but bind living entities to temporary happiness, fruit of action, and delusion, respectively. The modes are constantly in competition for supremacy, with one often defeating the others, creating the diversity we see in personalities and societies. The mode of goodness. This mode conditions one to happiness and knowledge. Those in goodness are satisfied by their intellectual pursuits, developing real knowledge. They are purified by pious activities and are free from illusion. In this mode, people see things as they are, leading to a sober perspective and potential for peace and prosperity, like scientists or artists in flow states. Divine qualities such as fearlessness, purity, knowledge, charity, self-control, truthfulness, freedom from anger, compassion, and modesty manifest in this mode. Mode of passion. This mode conditions one to the fruits of action, characterized by great attachment, uncontrollable desire, hankering, and intense endeavor. Activities in this mode are simply miserable and, despite leading to temporary mental happiness, result in grief. Those in passion are greedy, with unlimited hankering for sense enjoyment, like entrepreneurs chasing endless growth, often at personal cost. Mode of ignorance. This mode covers knowledge, leading to madness, foolishness, and illusion. Whatever one does in this mode is neither good for oneself nor for anyone. Activities in ignorance result in present misery and can lead to lower forms of life in the future. People in ignorance are like animals, unable to see things clearly and become irresponsible, like addiction or apathy in society. These modes dictate the particular type of body and particular types of mental and biological activities of living entities. While these designations are temporary, by association with the modes, one acquires different types of mentality, like how diet or environment influences mood in yoga practice. Only by transcending these 3 modes can one truly advance in spiritual consciousness, rising above like a meditator observing thoughts without attachment. The upside-down banyan tree. The Gita introduces a profound metaphor to describe the material world: the upside-down banyan tree. This imagery is far from arbitrary. It is a complete philosophical system designed to elucidate the transient, illusory, and deeply entangling nature of material existence, while simultaneously pointing to the path of liberation, a metaphor that modern ecologists might compare to global food webs or neural networks. There is a banyan tree which has its roots upward and its branches downward, and whose leaves are the Vedic hymns. One who knows this tree is the knower of the Vedas. Roots above. My father explained this paradox during one of our garden walks, pointing to a real banyan. The tree's roots grow upward because they begin from where the primary creator is located, the topmost planet of this universe. The roots above fundamentally represent the supreme divine as the ultimate origin of everything. This material tree of illusion is generated by the divine and nourished by divine energy, yet the supreme remains transcendental to it, just as the roots of a natural banyan tree nourish the entire tree but remain hidden underground. Those who understand that the origin is the supreme are the knowers of the Vedas, wise ones who see beyond appearances. Branches below. The branches of this tree extend downward and upward, my father continued, sketching in the dirt. These branches below represent the various planetary systems within the material universe. The lower parts are inhabited by varied manifestations of living entities such as human beings, animals, horses, cows, dogs, cats, etc., while on the upper parts are higher forms of living entities, the demigods and many other higher species of life. This hierarchical structure of planetary systems, from the highest to the lowest, reflects the various destinations attainable by conditioned souls based on their actions and adherence to the modes of material nature, like career ladders or social strata in human society. Leaves. The leaves of this upside-down banyan tree are identified as the Vedic hymns. My father elucidated, the Vedic hymns meant for elevating oneself are called the leaves of this tree. If one can understand this indestructible tree of illusion, then one can get out of it. The Vedas contain many injunctions for beneficial activities, offering temporary material benefits and elevation to heavenly planets. However, if one misinterprets these injunctions or remains solely attached to them for material gain, like using self-help books only for wealth, they become entangled in the intricate network of action and reaction, preventing true liberation. Twigs. The tree's twigs are the objects of the senses. These sense objects, sound, touch, form, taste, and smell, are the allurements of the material world. Just as twigs are easily grasped and can lead one further into dense foliage, so too do sense objects attract the conditioned soul, drawing them deeper into the illusion of material enjoyment. The uncontrolled senses are like venomous serpents that constantly demand gratification, keeping the mind agitated and preventing spiritual progress, a common challenge in yoga, where distractions like phones pull focus. Roots below. This tree also has roots going down, and these are bound to the fruitive actions of human society. These subsidiary roots, which spread throughout human society, represent the intricate web of action and reaction, actions performed with desires for results, and the accompanying attachments and aversions. As long as one engages in action for material fruits, these roots of attachment keep one firmly embedded in the banyan tree of material existence, leading to repeated births and deaths in various species and planetary systems, like karma in daily choices accumulating debt. Nourishment by the three modes. As a tree is nourished by water, so this tree is nourished by the three modes of material nature. The modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance continually sustain the banyan tree, dictating the experiences and destinations of conditioned souls residing on its branches. The varying proportions of these modes create the different species of life and the variegated manifestations observed in the material world, like biodiversity in ecosystems driven by environmental factors. Perverted reflection. Crucially, the Gita emphasizes that the real form of this tree cannot be perceived in this world. No one can understand where it ends, where it begins, or where its foundation is. This indestructible tree of illusion is a reflection of the real tree of the spiritual world. Just as a reflection in water is temporary, inverted, and not the reality, so too is the material world. It appears real and captivating, but it is ultimately a perverted, temporary, suffering reflection of the eternal, blissful reality of the spiritual world, like a virtual reality simulation mirroring but distorting true existence. The reflection is situated on desire, the desire of the living entity to lord it over material nature and enjoy it independently of the divine. This desire creates the illusion that this temporary material world is a permanent dwelling, leading to suffering. The spiritual world, on the other hand, possesses the same variegatedness, but in reality, free from the illusion and suffering of its material reflection. Paradise as a temporary manifestation. Milton's paradise, though idyllic, shares intrinsic qualities with the Gita's concept of a temporary material manifestation. It is a world created, not eternal, and inherently vulnerable to contamination, like fragile biospheres on Earth. Vulnerability of earthly abodes. Raphael's warning to Adam, that God attributes to place no sanctity if none be thither brought by men who there frequent or therein dwell, resonates deeply with Vedic understanding of material sanctity. No material place, however pristine or divinely ordained, possesses inherent eternal sacredness independent of the spiritual consciousness of its inhabitants. If the occupants of paradise lose their spiritual purity and consciousness, the place itself loses its sanctity, like sacred sites desecrated by tourism. In the Vedic context, even the highest material planets are subject to creation and annihilation and are therefore temporary. Pious activities in the mode of goodness can elevate one to these higher planets, where life is longer and sense enjoyment is greater, but even these destinations are ultimately miserable because they are not eternal. The divine beings who reside on these planets, along with their worshippers, will vanish with the annihilation of this material world. True sanctity and permanence are found only in the spiritual realm, where the Supreme eternally resides. Material world as a training ground. The Gita reveals a profound purpose behind material creation. It is a benevolent chance for conditioned souls to go back to the spiritual realm, back to home. This perspective reframes the material world not as a place of ultimate damnation, but as a temporary training ground, a school where living entities can learn to rectify their desire for independent enjoyment and revive their eternal loving relationship with the divine, like life's challenges building character. Just as great souls need instruction to understand their true duty and transcend material bewilderment, so too are all conditioned souls given the opportunity to learn and return to their constitutional position. The entire Gita directs us toward this conclusion, that every living entity is the eternal servitor of the divine and consequently one has to act in spiritual consciousness. Cutting down the tree, the weapon of detachment. The Gita, having depicted the entangled nature of the material world as an upside-down banyan tree, provides clear instruction for liberation, but with determination one must cut down this tree with the weapon of detachment. This is the central imperative for anyone aspiring to genuine spiritual freedom, a call to action that echoes in yoga retreats where detachment is practiced through minimalism. The imperative to cut. What does it mean to cut down this tree? I remember asking my father, pondering the seemingly drastic nature of the instruction as we sat under a real banyan. He clarified, it means to sever our illusory attachments to it. The Gita explains that one cannot become detached from material attraction simply by dressing in renunciate clothing or retreating to a secluded place if the mind is still restless, like trying meditation apps without commitment. True detachment comes from cultivating spiritual consciousness, from fixing the mind on the Supreme. The tree of this material world has no end for those attached to it, hence, there is no possibility of liberation for such individuals. The act of cutting down this deeply rooted tree implies a decisive and resolute break from the consciousness that binds one to material existence. It requires profound understanding that this world is temporary and that true happiness lies beyond its flickering pleasures, like decluttering a hoarded home. The meaning of detachment. Detachment is not about ceasing all activity but about changing the consciousness with which activities are performed. It means being free from the association of the modes of material nature. It is a state where the mind is detached from sense gratification and always thinking of doing good for others. It also means one should not accept anything which is detrimental to the path of spiritual progress. The process of cutting down the tree of material illusion is a process of purifying one's consciousness and detaching the mind from sense enjoyment. To attain the supreme perfectional stage, one must cultivate purified intelligence, control the mind with determination, give up the objects of sense gratification, and abandon desire and hatred. Such a person must be free from false ego, strength, pride, lust, anger, and acceptance of material things, and thus freed from all proprietorship, peaceful and competent for self-realization, qualities practiced in yoga through asanas that build mental resilience. The path of spiritual consciousness. The Gita provides the most effective means to cultivate this detachment, spiritual consciousness. This direct approach ensures that one's mind, though still in a material body, remains fixed on spiritual reality, like mindfulness in therapy. Association with devotees. My father emphasized that to cut down this tree, one has to associate with devotees, those who are in spiritual consciousness. This is how one learns how to discharge devotional service. Hearing the Gita in the association of devotees is particularly potent, leading one's life to be glorified beyond all penances, sacrifices, charities, speculations, etc. Practical for joining online sanghas. Sense control and mind regulation. The Gita outlines various methods for sense control as a stepping stone to spiritual consciousness. This involves controlling the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and touch, preventing them from engaging in self-gratification, like digital detoxes. The mind, as the center of all the activities of the senses and the reservoir of all ideas of sense gratification, must be controlled. If untrained, the mind can be an enemy, always agitated and oscillating. Gradually, step by step, with full conviction, one should become situated in trance by means of intelligence, and thus the mind should be fixed on the self alone and should think of nothing else. Devotional service as the direct method. While other spiritual systems are discussed, devotional service is presented as the supreme and most direct path to liberation. It is considered the easiest process of executing spiritual principles and the highest perfectional stage of the spiritual system. Devotional service involves 9 forms, of which hearing about the divine is the first and most important, including chanting, remembering, serving, etc. The work in spiritual consciousness. All work should be performed for the divine rather than for personal sense gratification. One should practice remembering the divine while struggling for existence. This means engaging one's bodily and mental activities in the service of spiritual consciousness. Even those who cannot directly practice devotional service can help in the propagation of spiritual consciousness by offering land, capital, organization, and labor for activities like building temples or helping with publications. Such work, when performed for divine satisfaction, becomes spiritual activity, like corporate social responsibility with spiritual intent. Conclusion: transcending the material for the spiritual realm. This exploration of Milton's creation narrative through the lens of the Gita fundamentally reframes its meaning and purpose. Milton's noble ambition to assert eternal providence and justify the ways of God to men finds its most comprehensive explanation not within the confines of a temporary, albeit beautiful, earthly paradise, but within the eternal wisdom of the Gita. The Vedic texts reveal that divine ways are not arbitrary or punitive, but perfectly just, guided by a benevolent plan to allow living entities to exercise their minute independence and ultimately return to their eternal constitutional position, a plan that offers hope in an uncertain world. Concept of the material world as an upside-down banyan tree explains why any earthly paradise, no matter how perfect its initial state, is inherently temporary and vulnerable to corruption. It is an inverted reflection, rooted in desire and nourished by the transient modes of material nature, like digital worlds that mimic but distort reality. The ultimate goal, therefore, is not to cling to such a fleeting realm, but to courageously cut down this tree of material entanglement with the weapon of detachment. This detachment is not passive withdrawal but active engagement in spiritual consciousness, cultivating divine qualities, controlling the senses and mind, and performing all actions for the satisfaction of the divine. Path of devotional service, with its emphasis on hearing, chanting, and serving under authorized guidance, is presented as the most direct and accessible means to achieve this liberation, tools anyone can use today. The true paradise is not a garden on earth, but the eternal spiritual world, the supreme abode from which one, having once gone, never returns. This ultimate destination is attained through the cultivation of pure devotional service, transcending all material modes and understanding one's eternal identity as a part of the Supreme. This is the highest perfectional stage where one is freed from all contaminations of the modes of material nature. This profound understanding is the true recovery of paradise, an internal eternal sanctuary of peace and uninterrupted bliss, realized through unwavering devotion to the Supreme Divine. As we'll discover in Chapter 4, this transcendence is tested through temptation and the enemies within.